Happy Sunday, everyone. This is Emmanuel for History and Coffee with our On This Day series for March 31st. Today we are celebrating the birthday of boxer Jack Johnson, who was born on March 31st, 1878 in Galveston, Texas. In 1908, he became the first African-American world heavyweight boxing champion. He was likely the most famous Black person in the world at this time, and he also openly challenged racial boundaries around intimate relationships and capitalist consumption. His story really shows the power of sport as a lens for understanding complex histories. Historian Teresa Runstetler shows that, quote, as Johnson continued to beat white men in the ring and flout racial etiquette outside the ring, he frequently found himself embroiled in public fights against this wider culture of white supremacy, end quote. These public battles led to literal riots as a moral outrage over boxing victories by Johnson and other Black boxers escalated into public violence. These boxers openly proved wrong white supremacy for all to see. White society then attempted to retaliate and halt these perceived social transgressions. Both Runstetler and historian Gail Biederman explore how this story also connects to constructions of masculinity in connection to race. Biederman provides an insightful explanation of how the Johnson story embodies American socio-cultural tensions at the turn of the 20th century. She writes, quote, the furor over Jack Johnson was excessive, but it was not unique. During the decades around the turn of the century, Americans were obsessed with the connection between manhood and racial dominance. This obsession was expressed in a profusion of issues, from debates over lynching, to concern about the white man's imperialistic burden overseas, to discussions of child rearing. The Jack Johnson controversy, then, was only one of a multitude of ways middle-class Americans found to explain male supremacy in terms of white racial dominance, and conversely, to explain white supremacy in terms of male power, end quote. Physical strength was a top consideration in these framings of power. It is important to note that Jack Johnson was not the first African-American world boxing champion, as this title belongs to the lighter weight Joe Gans. However, cultural constructions of masculinity framed the heavyweight category as the strongest and therefore the top reflection of so-called racial strength. This is why Johnson was deemed a bigger threat to moral order than was the lighter weight Gans. It is interesting to consider this in relation to modern sports in the 21st century. To what extent are different sports or even different positions within the same sport thought of differently in terms of masculinity? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you will join me again tomorrow for the next edition of our On This Day video series.